There is nothing wrong with your television.
Brexit has been a significant success for this country.
Do not attempt to adjust the picture. For the next 10 minutes, we will control all that you see and hear.
You said, I ask myself all the time, was it the right thing to do?
You're about to experience the awe and mystery which reaches from the deepest inner mind of Michael Gove.
Brexit has been a significant success for this country.
No, this isn't a Halloween prank, it's more of some sort of 1984 crazy dream. It's so bad that next year, out of the G20, the UK is predicted to have the lowest growth apart from sanctioned Russia. Just look at what the OBR is saying, that's the economists that work for the government. They're saying there's a 15% reduction in trade as a result of Brexit. This snapshot shows trade during COVID, and this is what trade is after COVID. The UK hasn't recovered. This comes, again, from the government's own economists. This is business investment, and this is part of the reason for the major tax cuts put forward by Liz Truss. They're desperate to get investment from abroad back into the UK. It's never recovered since the referendum. The pound has shrunk against the US dollar, and this means that all imports cost more money. This is why Adam Posson said,
how much is Brexit? Why did I say 80%? How much is Brexit to blame?
Inflation in the UK has been skyrocketing, as we've all seen in the supermarkets. This is like government economists to suggest that if we were in the EU right now, we'd be 4% ahead of GDP. That is twice as bad as locking up most of the country in a pandemic. House prices are going up because we have labour shortages, because we don't have access to the EU. We also have issues with goods coming over. They've gone up in price because of the tariffs. And under the Tories, because of all the borrowing, it means that the public sector debt has gone up. Councils have had reduced spending, and we've all seen the tax rises, the highest in 70 years. The only thing that has gone up is hate crime. And when, of course, Michael Gove says
Brexit has been a significant success.
It's made David Cameron and Theresa May two of the most hated prime ministers in British history. And yet, as you watch this interview with all the facts I've just given you, Sophie Ridge does a terrible job of holding Michael Gove to account.
Yes.
You said this about Brexit. I was quite interested in this. You said, I ask myself all the time, was it the right thing to do? I still think that it was right, but that doesn't mean that a choice as momentous as this doesn't require you from time to time to think, what are the downsides? Has it turned out in the way you might have imagined? What lessons can you learn? What are the downsides, do you think?
Well, I think it's important to look at a big question like Brexit and to recognise that you can't make a snap judgment a few years later.
But at the time, many leavers did.
The day after we vote to leave, we hold all the cards and we can choose the path that we want. It's also important to realise that while we calmly take our time to change the law, the one thing which will not change is our ability to trade freely with Europe. Resolving them fully and properly won't be any more complicated or onerous than the day-to-day work that they undertake now.
Are you embarrassed seeing that back?
No.
Free trade agreement that we will have to come to with the European Union should be one of the easiest in human history.
And say definitively that everything as a result of leaving the European Union has gone precisely in a perfect way.
Easy peasy is what we were told, because we'd have all the cards. Some leavers even went so far as to suggest there would be no downside to Brexit.
I think, on balance, Brexit has been a significant success for this country, but I do acknowledge that there have been frictions. And my friend Steve Baker, for example, acknowledged that as we resolve the situation in Northern Ireland...
That was Sophie's cue to use all the information I just provided you, and she said nothing. She nodded. The troubles in Northern Ireland have specifically been caused and created by Brexit. They've got to put a border up somewhere, otherwise you're allowing goods to freely move between two parties, the two unions. It can't work. The Northern Irish government isn't working because one of the major parties isn't in power because the protocol cannot be resolved.
And I don't want to sort of, put the blame on anyone particularly, but I do think in retrospect, the way in which the European Union insisted on the protocol...
You signed up to the protocol and Boris Johnson said it was a great deal, though.
It's great that Sophie pushes back and says, hold on a minute, you said it was a great deal. But you look at what people are saying abroad and how they're analysing and polling people within the UK, and they're finding that it has absolutely split families. This is what's happened with Michael Gove. It is not, and Boris Johnson, this is not an easy solution, but it's even getting worse because we're starting to see a threat of violence take effect within Ireland and Northern Ireland, all because of Brexit.
But some of the things that have been said and done haven't necessarily been perfectly pitched.
Perfectly pitched? Just have a listen to what Boris said about the protocol.
I want to make it absolutely clear that under no circumstances, whatever happens, will I allow the EU or anyone else to create any kind of division down the Irish Sea or to attenuate our union.
We wouldn't have had the vaccine rollout that was so successful if we'd been within the European Union.
But UK regulators have completely contradicted this claim. Why is Sophie not pulling him up? Both Slovakia and Hungary bought non-EU approved vaccines. Nothing to do with Brexit.
And in an area for which I was previously responsible in the environment, we wouldn't have a better method of supporting farmers that strengthens the environment as well as enhancing food production if we were in the common agricultural policy.
It's funny how he says that because a Tory MP is literally bragging about how he can dump raw sewage into the seas because no one's on the beach, which the EU wouldn't allow. What the Tory MP doesn't realise is that it gets into the fish, who then catch the diseases, ending up in our supermarkets and ultimately into our bellies. We also had 40,000 pigs being culled, with the meat being thrown away due to Brexit in part because of labour shortages. It's also cost the food and drink industry £2 billion.
British farmers have reacted with shock to the terms of a new free trade deal with New Zealand.
The deal will see Kiwi meat imported without tariffs, and farmers in the UK say they get nothing in return.
It's us surrendering to you, New Zealanders, and giving you a great deal, and we're getting nothing out of it.
The impact on Britain's economy is expected to be negligible.
And in my own area, there are opportunities now that the Prime Minister is exploring to change the way in which some of the big funds, the pension funds, invest, which will mean that more money can go into levelling up areas. Those are three big benefits of Brexit.
However, a few minutes earlier, she said this to Michael Gove.
The per-person spending gap between the North and London doubled between 2019 and 2021.
I love catching these facial expressions. It almost looks like a dolt moment from Homer Simpson.
Brexit has been a significant success for this country.
If you do want to see someone hold Michael Gove to account, have a listen to Femi trying to interview Michael Gove.
My name's Femi. In 2016, you promised that Brexit wouldn't cause any damage to the economy. Now, your own Office of Budget Responsibility says that it's done more damage to our economy than COVID. Do you feel like you've betrayed the people of the UK?
It's very nice to meet you. I don't think we've been introduced.
No, we haven't. So do you think that Brexit has helped working class people?
Sorry, I missed your name.
My name's Femi. Do you think
very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Do you think Brexit has helped?
Very interesting delaying tactic for Michael Gove just to think and obviously make some time so he can get to his next destination.
Working class people.
Well, yes.
How?
How? Very kind of you to record our conversation.
Delay, but why wasn't Sophie Ridge asking questions like this and trying to get precise answers?
That has made things more expensive. Are you happy with what you've done to working class people?
And as stated earlier by Adam Posson, 80% of inflation can be connected to Brexit.
Yes or no, has Brexit damaged our economy?
I think...
Isn't that answer a far removed answer compared to what was said earlier?
Brexit has been a significant success for this country.
Okay, the simple fact is, your economists are the Office of Budget Responsibility. You don't have a greater expertise than them. The people you rely on to make your decisions have told you that it's damaged our economy to the tune of £100 billion a year relative to where we would have been had we not left the EU. So again, I ask you, has Brexit damaged the economy? No. You say no. The Small Business Federation says that 70% of their members, so 70% of small businesses in the UK, have struggled to sell to the EU since Brexit. Since the Brexit you said would not create additional barriers to trade. 2016, and the effects are still being felt by people today. So again, I ask you, have you betrayed the British people by delivering a Brexit?
What happened in the 2019 general election?
The majority voted parties coming into a second referendum. Again, I ask you.
It's amazing, isn't it, how they find this all so funny and yet it's caused so much destruction and devastation to both society and the economy. Ha ha ha. So what do you think of Michael Gove and his views as well as Sophie Ridge's performance? Why are the media not holding to account? Why is it now taking private citizens to go out their way to actually hold these people to account? As usual, I'd like to say a big thank you to all of my supporters, to all of you that have become members, to everyone who's bought me a coffee. It helps keep the channel growing and going. Thank you so much. As usual, thanks for listening. Bye for now.